welcome back. And again, thank you for being with us this afternoon. We are waiting for our guest right now. So we have Andrew from Harrah, and we're waiting, if I understand correctly, for Chris Rice, correct?
He's signing on right now.
He's signing on right now. Perfect. That's the beauty of being live, guys. That is a live event, and we have people from everywhere in the world watching us. It is about almost 2 o'clock here in California, almost 5 o'clock for you guys in North Carolina, correct?
Right.
Thank you for being with us. We have a lot more sessions during the day. We have Jeff Hammond back with us. We had Jeff this morning. Good afternoon, Jeff. How are you doing? Good evening, I should say, pretty much now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'd like to welcome Andrew as well as, excuse me, Mark to the event. And yeah, this morning was a lot of fun, and can't wait to get a chance to kind of pick you guys' brain, because being back on the box this year, I've learned a lot about what I didn't know, and I want to get caught up from y'all's perspective, because I think your dad and I go back to the very beginning, about a time we were all still middle of the race.
So Jeff, how old are you? How long have you been in the garage?
Let's put it this way. I've been in there long enough to where probably your son could be three of them, if that's put that way.
My first time in the garage was 91.
Well, I've been
Probably
there,
got me beat.
I've been there since 1972.
Yeah.
Back in the day when we were still running the old Borg Warners and Muncie transmissions, if that tells you anything.
The pre-text days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to kind of talk old, but at the same time, tell me what's new for like in your company, and what we can expect coming up this year and in the future as far as transmissions and gears and all that good stuff. So
we have a lot of things. We got a lot of exciting things coming on board.
Well, good.
And Drew, there is, while we're waiting for Chris to join, there is a little bit of background sound, like an echo on your side. So do you have a phone on or something, or two computers in case?
The phone, it's still echoing right now.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, it is better.
Okay.
So we have we're going to wait maybe one more minute, because we like to start on time, and there are people joining us. Again, when we started this morning, we had over 110 countries represented from around the world. So it's pretty amazing. Now, obviously, I think like in Europe and the people in the Middle East might be in bed right now. It's possible, but in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, we have people watching us too. It's the early morning tomorrow, and so we're very thankful to have you being part of this. This is really a big deal, and I know Judy, who is watching us right now, is a big fan of you guys. And Judy is the co-founder of EPARTRADE. And also, I'd like to thank Paul Fanner, because, Paul was the perfect partner, as we mentioned this morning, when we launched Online Race Industry Week, and the combination of EPARTRADE and Racer made this possible. So we delighted. It is 2 o'clock here. So Jeff, we're going to hand it over to you to take over, and then we'll work here with the team to try to get Chris, to you very quickly. Thank you.
Chris should be joining us soon. He'll I just talked to him on the phone. He's
I saw him popping up. So let me.
Okay, cool.
I just saw he's right there. I think, ladies and gentlemen. So Jeff, on to you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Francis. And it's good to be back, being a part of this afternoon session. And holy smoke, is it Halloween already? Hey, Chris,
that's right.
Joined us. What are you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm real excited to have you on the show today, because a lot like Mark, we kind of go back to the good old days, but this online, racing industry week, I think it's gotten off to a pretty darn good deal. And I'm really, interested to see how this technology will bring us all closer together, even when we're not supposed to be together. A little joke there on the pandemic. But to be able to still keep up with the technology and keep up with what's going on in the world of NASCAR today. And folks, like I say, I'm excited to be a part of this because, that's been my life for every day. Again, Mark and I were laughing about it, how long he's been around the garage area. And I go all the way back to like 1972. So I was laughing about a moment ago, back in the Borg Warner days, as well as the Muncie transmission days is what we were using. And a lot of times those transmissions were coming out of junkyards, and where somebody wrecked it, we were able to score a piece. But Mark, let's talk about it. The fact that Harrah Enterprise is now father and son duo of one of the most, I guess you might say, steady programs that's been around. You guys, you've been involved, since the late 90s, and yet you keep progressing each and every year and find a way to stay in. So what's going on with your company?
So before we go forward, let's go backwards a little bit, the inception of the transmission, how it came about. So, because this is a time of in NASCAR that one of the reasons why that we come into the sport with the transmission in 06. I'd owned Jasper Motorsports along with my partner Doug Bobble from 96 through 2003, and we were a pretty successful little single car team. We had our own little agenda, but we finished in the top 20 in points last 2 years of the sport, so we were pretty happy with that. And we moved on. Roger came to us and said we were in partnership with Roger Penske in the engine business, and it's actually called the Penske Jasper engine. So we did engines for our team, for Penske, for Roger's teams. And then when we sold the business in 03, because I was a general manager and the working partner of our race team, I thought I was done with NASCAR. I thought, I've been in this for a while. My kids are getting older. Andrews needs either a police escort or me beside him as he was growing up. So about 05 came and I started hearing about the new COT car coming, how I was going to need a new transmission. So I thought, I want to jump back into this, but not in a racing style management, but from a part standpoint, because I remember writing all those checks at part vendors. So I thought, I want to be on that end for a while. So we sat down and I had an opportunity to go in and buy Rankin Industries. So we came in as a partner with Jasper and bought Rankin Industries. And then from there, we developed a transmission that's sitting in most of our customers' car now. It has evolved, but it has and it hasn't. We've tuned on it quite a bit, but there's a lot of things in there. There are some transmissions that Joe Gibbs Racing is running now that are some of the original transmissions we sold to them in 2007. So we're pretty proud of that. We evolve it for certain reasons, but not because there was anything that was better. It was designed very well to begin with. And then when 2018 came around, and I had one of the largest Jasper distributorships in the nation at the time, and they wanted to bring everything in board because I was the only privately owned distributor left. So I sold it back to Jasper. And in return, I bought the rest of the transmission business. And so in 2018, Andrew was coming up. He had already been on board. He graduated University of Georgia and was pretty excited about getting into sport because he's around it all his life when I had the team. And so that's when Harrah Enterprise started in 2018 as a whole entity with the transmission itself. And since then, Andrew, in the last 3 or 4 years before that, has been developing a rental program, which we're very proud about. And I was more concentrated on the design end, concentrating on our teams, like our Furniture Row was a team of ours that they won their championship with our transmission. Joe Gibbs Racing's won many championships with our transmission. Stewart Haas Racing came on board 3 or 4 years ago, so we service all their stuff. We're very a low-key company. We don't like to advertise a lot, but we're in the winner's circle quite a bit. I think this year, and I don't keep track of the stats, but we've got to be very close to 200, because I know we were at 176 in the last year, and I believe we might have won that many to hit 200 this year. I'm not real sure, but 200 wins in 14 years is probably almost half of the wins in Cup alone. So we pretty much have more wins than the rest of our competition put together. And there's some formidable competitors out there, believe me.
We had 18 in Xfinity. 5 of those came from Mr. Chris Rice's shop, which is awesome. And then we had 22 in my Cup Series this year in 2020.
Yeah. So Chris is one of my mentors, and he's probably younger than me, but Chris reminds me of one of my first crew chiefs, Buddy Parrott. I don't know if that's good or bad, Chris, but you're such a good leader. I mean, to listen to you on the radio on Saturday, since you're a spotter, and your leadership and the way you present yourself to the driver, especially when he's down or you guys got a problem, has got to have won several races this year. I just had to brag on you a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.
Well, the thing is now, since Mark is, kind of introduced you into this thing, big guy, you are Chris Rice. You are the first employee of Culloch Racing, and now you're the president of Culloch Racing. And you guys undoubtedly are very familiar with the Harrah products as far as, transmissions and everything and what they've meant to your sport, because you guys have been pretty formidable with some pretty good road racers here in recent years. So you want to tell us a little about how you got hooked back into Harrah?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, they live in Greensboro, North Carolina. Or they were from Greensboro, North Carolina, which I had no idea. And I live close to there, but we are very loyal at Culloch Racing, and these guys can contest to that. And we had a different company, and some things had changed over there. And I just I knew Andrew. I didn't know Andrew from actually the guy that I was so close to at another company had just kind of went over and was
Helping us.
Probably just helping Andrew and those guys out. And I didn't know Andrew or Mark or anybody from Adam. And these guys stepped on board late. They were very competitive in all areas. And we have been going to the racetrack with those guys for 3 years now. And knock on wood, we had one minor issue. It was at Phoenix. I will never forget it. It was at Phoenix, and we had a little bit of an oil drop after practice from a rear seal, like something just crazy, like nothing that really mattered. And those guys went to work, knock on wood, like I said, hadn't had any issues. And man, our coast down, and I know everybody who's probably on this understands coast down is always outstanding. If we have an issue, we normally find it at the shop. Andrew this year, and we thought we had an issue with the gear, and he was driving up here, and I'm like, whoa, stop. Like, we're FaceTiming and having, and just the service that those guys have from delivery to everything has been just great for Culloch Racing off the racetrack. But on the racetrack, I mean, we run our gears and our transmission's pretty hot. Very seldom do I get a call back on Monday that we've done anything crazy. We probably burn up some gears, but I've never really got a call back. Transmission wise, we have had the great AJ Allmendinger in there, and I really mean that because he has been great. And we've had some guys that are awful with gear, but we've knock on wood have finished the road races with great drivers, even through the rain. These guys have been phenomenal. They have other products that they've been pushing on me that like I said, I am very loyal to things that I do. Because it works, right, Jeff? As a leader, as a guy that runs a business, if it works, why do you? I mean, until you start seeing something that just, man, wow! And that these guys, they put it in my face, and I'm like, okay, it is better. All right, I'll try it. Let's try it. So,
he was an easy sell. He was not an easy sell.
No, not an easy sell. So
you
in racing,
hard-headed, maybe.
Exactly. In racing, you have to go to the racetrack. You're racing against, in our situation, we had 2 full-time cars and a part-time car. So we're racing against everybody else. So we don't want those guys to have the best of the best, right? We want them to be behind us a little bit. But I got to say, I always push these guys. I had a couple of teams call me over the winter. And immediately I called Andrew. These guys have been just phenomenal. So
we appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment.
everybody brings has been great to our organization, and it's showed in wins. You know, I don't know if you can see, this is a Charlotte Roval Trophy sitting behind me, and we've won 7 races to date, and every one of them came with their equipment in our car. And it's been phenomenal, and we're looking for many more with them.
I think you pretty much because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Mark, I guess my question would be next. You know, we've had all of this salesman talk out of Chris here. What do you got coming up this year that you've been kind of touching on it? You got anything you want to share with us? Because I know there's a lot of people out there. We've got about 140 people, paying attention to what's going on here. So you've got an opportunity here, unless Chris is getting ready to sell it for you. One of you need to get up there and kind of share with us.
No, I'm just going to tell him, don't give all our secrets away too early.
That's the problem. We get better, but nobody wants to tell anybody that happens.
That is a problem sometimes when you come out with a new product and you give it to a couple guys, and they don't want to tell anybody else. They don't want to tell anyone else.
I mean, not to get away from transmissions, and I'll get right back to it, but a product that I released about 2 years ago was a torque vectoring differential for the quick change for the local short track guy. And one of the guys that operate in the Cup Series, Tim Brown, is a big Bowman grade champion. He's won 10 there, I think as many as anybody there. And so he had been prodding me for several years to build a product, and I did. So I built this torque vectoring differential. It's right behind us, and he started winning with it, but he would not tell anybody he had it in the race car. I said, Tim, someday you have to tell that you have this in so I can sell some of these. He said, I am not doing that. He said, we are not telling anybody we have this thing in the car. It's that good. And so you come into those issues. But as far as what's happening next year with the transmission, the big transition from 2021 to 2020 from 2020 to 2021 is next year road courses, lots of them. I mean, we're going from, back in the day when you and I were at the track as a team, there were 2. There was Sonoma and Watkins Glen. Now, next year, there's going to be 7. And something that we've been developing over the last 12 months, and it's been in Chris's car a couple of times. It's not that it's simple, but on a road course, the faster you can shift it, the faster you're going to go. When tenths and microseconds count. So we've been working on the fork speed of the transmission, something that a driver's not going to say, wow, because he's not going to be able to feel it. But it's going to over a period of a lap, probably put on at least a tenth, just going from 40 milliseconds to 25 milliseconds on the shifter. And getting down to 25 milliseconds on the shifter is as fast as the electric shifters in the Indy cars are going right now. They're in the 28 to 29 range, and we're actually faster than that. And we do it with certain tricks in there in the valve body. We're the only ones in this sport with a transmission that we can vary the speed of the fork on the transmission just with leverage. So that's an area that we're working on. We feel like our transmission is very good on the road courses. It shows with the wins we have. We've several times in the last 10 years. Our very first win was with Juan Montoya back in the Ganassi days. He was running his very first road course. That's the first time that transmission was on the racetrack. I tried to they had to talk me into putting it in the car. I'm a pretty conservative guy. So I said, no, I just don't have enough time. And Juan had tested it. He said, well, I want it in the car. No matter what, I want it. So I can't even tell you it's going to finish the race. And he said, well, we feel good about it. I said, well, I don't feel good about it, and I designed it. I said, I need more time on that transmission. And he went out there and won the race with it. And he scared me to death. I was feeling pretty good last 20 laps or so. And then he come on, he said, I got a funny noise and a vibration. I think it's coming out of the transmission. And my heart jumped through the roof. I said, now the world is watching Juan Montoya in his first road course race, and my transmission will be the reason why he lost it. So it wasn't the last 20 laps was pretty hair raising, but just to give you a little story, but that's one of the things we're working with is the shifter and the fork speed. There's not a lot we can do within the rules of NASCAR, and we probably have caused a few of those rules in the past, but so we honor that. We always have. So we always work within the rule book. But so we've come out with reciprocating weight, trying to get trying to get things where the sliders slow down. We try to machine the sliders to where, and for people that really don't know how a crash box works, I've got a gear and a slider. So this is a slider that actually shifts from one gear to the other. When it does, it goes in here and locks into these dogs. So we are playing around with geometry on these dogs to be able to lock and unlock this thing a lot easier for the driver. So sometimes when he will blip the throttle on a downshift, and that's usually the hardest time when you got to unlock. You literally have to unlock these dogs, and in between it going from here to here, the driver's got to pull it back. The whole time it's sitting there turning 8,000, 9,000 RPM. He's got to time it to do exactly that. Because if he doesn't do it, if he hangs it up and he tries to pull it when it's engaged, he will not be able to get it out, or it'll be real sticky to him. So we're fooling around with the geometry on that to be able to let the driver to have a bigger window of timing to pull it out of gear, and consequently also go into the next gear, because it's the same thing. It's actually going to gear. It's a different RPM, so it's got to go in there and engage very quickly, but very effortlessly. So things as small as a little detail of the chamfer on the top of the slider. I mean, thousands count when it comes to that. So those are some of the details I think that separate our transmission from people who just want to build one and rent one out or sell one to a customer. We're always trying to improve on our transmission.
Now, you mentioned Mr. Brown, doing your rear end deal. I got a question for Andrew. Andrew, I know that you do some racing yourself in the modified. Do you do any R&D work for the company? And has that given you better feel in your own car because you're able to come back and relate to whatever changes that are being made, being basically an in-house driver?
Yeah. So yeah, actually, I'm a pretty rookie driver, I want to add. I have probably 10, 15, I have about 15 modified races on now. But at first probably 6 or 7 races, I did not have my dad's new weight track in it. And he put it in, we went up to Bowman Gray and tested it, and it was the first time I was able to give the crew chief a little bit of feedback. So I was like, Dad, and I came over the radio, I was like, Dad, I can't believe it, but I can actually feel myself be able to get back to the gas faster with the new product. Just because the way that this applies torque to both the wheels evenly, you can just mash the gas so much harder coming off the corner and so much sooner. And like that was a big thing for me. I was like, Dad, I can't believe it, but I actually think I definitely feel a difference in this race car now. And so that was exciting. I did a little R&D there for him.
So Chris, with your stable of drivers, and particularly AJ Allmendinger, what kind of feedback have you gotten from them? Because, AJ, he's driven a lot of different, for a lot of different teams. So he's had an opportunity to not only drive and feel what Harrah's has got for him, but he's felt the competition.
Yeah, he has. And I will tell you, they get to playing with that. And he'll tell them when it gets a little sticky or it's, when it doesn't shift from second to third that much. But the key is when they hit it, when they hit what he's talking about. Now, I've never been a transmission man. I don't plan on being a transmission man. But when they hit that perfect scenario, he never complains. We wheel hopped. Everybody wheel hopped a lot at the Daytona Roval. Mm-hmm. It was due to a bunch of different things. It was due to the tire. It was due to our setups. It was due to a lot of things. And we ended up breaking a input shaft. And I think that was the first time our drivers came back and said, hey, this is where we can help if we do this to the transmission. These guys went to work. We showed up at we showed up at the next Roval race, and they shifted just beautiful. We shifted every single lap at Phoenix in the 11 car. So even their oval transmissions are ready to shift. So they give them feedback that probably they understand and I don't, right? AJ's been great about that. Justin Haley's been amazing about that. I got to give him a ton of credit. He knows his transmissions very well. So it has been a help to have AJ give the feedback, but it's short and sweet, and they go to work on it every time.
So Mark, how many actual customers besides the Culloch Racing, operation do you have business with right now?
Well, so we have two types of our business. We have the transmission that the teams themselves own, and like Stewart Haas Racing, they own, in their Cup side, they own 56 transmissions of our transmissions, and we service them all right here. But their Xfinity side rents transmissions from us. So Andrew pretty much handles the rental side. So I think he's got seven or eight customers, consistent customers. There'll be a lot of one-offs. People want to rent our transmissions for road courses, or maybe for a super speedway like Daytona, because we have won Daytona quite a bit. I think we did with Chris on their transmission.
We won, just so you're doing stats, we've won 4 of the last 5 speedway races together.
Yeah. So we've got quite a few wins with several customers, but our main customers in Cup and not Xfinity would be Joe Gibbs Racing. They have about 110 transmissions. Stewart Haas Racing, we rented transmissions to Levine this year. We had the Gaunt Brothers.
32 car, Go Fast.
Had Go Fast, yeah, with St. Clair.
Yeah, so on the Cup side, we have about a third of the field, 12, 13 cars. And then on the Xfinity side, we don't have as many, but we have the top of the line guys, which is Culloch Racing and Stewart Haas Racing. So all in all, like full-time teams, we got about 15 or 16. And a lot of those guys are right there at the top of the standings every year. So pretty proud of the group that we take care of right now.
Okay, what about outside of NASCAR? Do you have anything that we would find interesting as far as short track programs? Guys who are racing certain places that maybe they need something a little different, or they're getting ready to go to a road course for the first time, that's out there that you're doing business for?
Well, we do. We have tried to branch out. This year, we've always been really concentrated on NASCAR, but we felt like this is a time to go out, since we brought the whole company under one roof, and we have a brand new shop. In 2018, we bought a brand new shop down here in Cornelius, so we moved closer to the sport down here.
I'm going to pan over here and show you all the shop while he's talking. Go ahead.
So in 2018, when we started this shop, and we have our own dyno room here for our differentials and our transmissions. We have our own CNC shop that is not within this shop here. And we're pretty proud of this year alone. We ended up building close to 700 transmissions out of this shop and almost 600 differentials. Because we do a lot. We don't do the differentials for many of the teams that own our transmission in the Cup side, because they're big enough to do their own. But we do a lot of rentals too. About all the Xfinity teams we service, we do the differentials for also. When I was part of Jasper through 2018, up through 2015, we did all of Penske's differentials at Jasper. And a lot of people don't know that, but we service them. And so I learned a lot being involved in that program. So in 2014, I come out with my own oil pump, and it's something that could be put on anybody's vehicle. But this is a little bit different than your standard spur gear pump. This thing's pretty proud to announce that most of the wins this year in Cup, and all of Chris's wins and a lot of the other Xfinity wins of the 18 had this pump on it. There's a few teams in Cup that don't run this that win, but I would say the majority of them do. And I don't know exactly who all that is. I've sold about 600 of these pumps, but they're on all of my customers. And I know that Henrik Motorsports runs this pump. I had a tough sell with Gibbs because they had a very good pump that they made themselves. And when they tested this, they basically conceded that, well, it's better. It flowed better. It was better horsepower. And the difference between this and a regular pump is that pump you get from a traditional manufacturer like G-Force or Johnson is that they run a spur gear pump, and this is a gear rotor pump. So it actually has a gear internally like this. And so very efficient gear. The weight of the pump itself is almost a half a pound lighter than the next lightest competitor out there. But the biggest thing about these gear rotor pumps, they're not only good for horsepower, but you can lower the pressure down because that is horsepower. So you can lower the pressure down without any cavitation.
Hey, just real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, Mark, but we're getting a few comments off of our viewers. And Don O'Neill wanted to let you know that was a great looking shop you got over there, and you ought to be very proud of it. It's really well done, and it looks like it's brand new. And you said you guys have been in it there for a while, but as far as my experience with a lot of shops, you always look like, you know, they're a little dirtier, but that looks almost like, you know, cleanliness over there. So, you know, great job. And
thanks.
You got to be excited.
We can't leave on Fridays if we can't see the reflection of the toolboxes on the floor.
Okay. All right. So
I'm laughing.
That's like Chip, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great bunch of guys here. Between our builders, our assemblers, we have a total of about 125 years experience in NASCAR alone, and every single one of them have built things for a championship team. So we're pretty proud about the guys we have work here, and their workstations reflect that. They're professionals. You know, we have guys like Jordan Kaiser and Mike Waters and Chris Nix. We call him Hoppy. We brought a couple of new kids on board because I have a couple other products, and I don't even have one in front of me, but we bought, when Mid-Valley went out of business 3 years ago, we bought their hub business. I always, when Bevan introduced that Quicksilver hub to the sport, I'm always interested in something that is different but better than what's out there. And we felt that it was. So when Bevan said he was getting ready to retire, I said, well, what about your hub business? I said, I like to buy, and I did. So we've been real successful the last 2 years with the Quicksilver hub. Although I didn't design it, we've improved it in little minor ways but it is, we're pretty proud about the hub. It's been on a lot in the winter circle quite a bit this year too. And so we've got it. We have the oil pump at one time, and I actually designed a differential, and it's in the rule book. If you look in the NASCAR rule book, you'll see that this differential is actually legal, but it's with the difference in that compared to a normal spring would be, this is the waveform spring. And Jeff, I'm sure, and Chris too, know that I call it the bed spring that sits on top in a traditional differential. A lot of people trouble it. So I went out to design a differential with a waveform spring that actually puts even pressure all the way around the dogs to lock it up. But more importantly, though, you can change the pressure from 40 pounds all the way up to almost 200 without getting coil bound. And you can't do that with the standard what I call the bed spring that's in most diffs. Other than that, a lot of it's pretty much the same thing other than the revolution with the spring. But I never had time to, once my transmission took off, I never had time to develop this differential. It's made it on the track a couple of times, but right now I think I'm gonna get back into doing that.
Save the pieces, save the pieces.
Don't put that in my gear.
Hey, Chris, when he's showing these products out there like he is right now, anything, you know, just kind of jumps out at you and says, you know, we know the quality and where the research is coming from and the technology, and that how much trust do you have to go race something like this when you don't get a chance to go to the track like you used to and go out there and try to tear it up? I mean, I know they got dynos, you know, transmission dynos, but I also wanted to touch on something that you, I mean, all of us understand. We would have never thought about getting hubs and getting speed out of hubs. I mean, we just think about, make sure you pack them with, you know, with at that time, Sunoco or Mobil 1 red grease and, you know, go race. And nowadays that's a big deal as far as the teams. And, you know, you talk about coast down. I mean, it all begins there with the rolling resistance for the tires and wheels and goes right up through the entire drivetrain.
Exactly. Yep. So the Quicksilver hub's pretty unique in the fact that the bearing race, not the bearing itself, but the bearing race is built into the hub. And what's unique about that, I mean, what it allows us to do is to put a bigger bearing in there, which is less friction, is stronger, and we can separate them further apart than your standard hub. So that is a real big deal, especially when you can get the tolerances down to a general end play in a hub is 3,000s, 3 to 4,000. So we can get our tolerances down to 1,000s on our hubs. And the front hubs, I mean, you understand how important geometry is on the front end, especially where the tire's pointing at. When you can get a front hub that's down to 1,000s end play in it and point it exactly where it needs to go without any other play, I mean, that's pretty big, and it counts. And that's the reason why a lot of guys are in the winter circle run that hub for that reason. We can spread the bearings out more so it's stiffer. It has a lot more compliance in the KNC rigs than anything else out in the market. And it's something that we haven't pushed that much outside of NASCAR, but it could be done. Right now, I'm outfitting a vintage Trans Am car with a set of these hubs. We've had to redo the spindles, the rear end in the car and all that to get it on, but he felt that important. We also sold him a brand new transmission and a brand new differential with this. But you talk about confidence in something you design, and I have to mention the people that really make this transmission work, and that's Gleason Corporation. When I first designed this transmission, I set out to get the best gear manufacturer that I could in the world to build the gears for this transmission. One of the reasons is because my partner was Jasper, the largest transmission rebuilder in the world, and they couldn't afford to have advertising on a transmission film that actually had their name on it. So we went out to get the best stuff that we could get to design this transmission. And one of the unfair advantages I had is that Jasper allowed me to do unlimited research and development. To them, this is a marketing tool to them. So I could sit down and get the best of everything with this transmission and make it, because that's what they wanted, the best, because they are the best in their own field. So when I went out and got Gleason, we did a lot of simulation work. And right now I'm currently in a huge simulation program with them on a non-racing adventure in the military. We're actually electrifying a tactical warfare vehicle, and we won the bid, and we're now currently in the middle of production with this, but we're taking a special forces vehicle and make it completely electric using the generator the engine's on board as generator right now. So we're going in there and designing this transmission and the differentials with simulation programs that Gleason, they actually are proprietary to Gleason because they own the company that does the simulation. And Gleason is the world's, they invented the ring and pinion. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but they literally invented it in 1876, and they own a patent to it. It sits on the CEO's desk. They actually have the patent on the bevel ring and pinion back in 1876 before a car was invented. They are in the process of having to do some really heavy duty milling on some gearing that they had. So they needed to turn their water mill in the river that was right beside their plant 90 degrees, and they didn't know how to do it. So they literally invented the ring and pinion to turn it down to have a mill table inside the plant for the water mill that runs outside of their plant. And it's still in existence today in Rochester, New York. But those guys are phenomenal with their gearing.
The thing is right now, Mark, I thought that Chris Rice came up with that. You were around back that time, weren't you?
No, just because I don't have no hair doesn't mean I was not around. You were talking about your first when you was in racing. A lot of people don't know this, but my first time to Daytona and doing the full Busch circuit was 1989. I was not legal to go in the garage area, but yeah. So I know a lot about those. And you were talking about how do we put trust in a company? Right. So we were in inspection in 2020, right at 47 times for college racing. We got a lot of beat down in 2019 about being illegal twice and stuff like that. But we were in inspection 47 times. I believe 46 of those times we pulled the rear end gear out. And you probably, you have to have a lot of trust in your company that you're renting from or you're in bed with to know that they've done everything legal, because we don't take them and count them. Like, I don't think it's nobody they rent to does that. So they do follow the rule books. The dad of the situation loves to push the rules. And he likes to make different rules, but they do push the rules, and our transmission have to weigh a certain amount due to these guys. So they weigh our transmissions sometimes. All of the road courses, they pull that stuff out, and you got to have a lot of trust in a company that you get in bed with. And that's one thing I never worry about. I do remember the first time we had to pull it out, I thought to myself, oh gosh, I hope this thing weighs enough. And I think we had just won the Dash for Cash with AJ Allmendinger at Homestead. They made us pull the transmission out and weigh it. And I'm like, I don't even know what it's supposed to weigh. I hope they do. So yeah, you got to have a lot of trust in them.
Now,
Along those lines, the process that we also do is, we have this rental program, and we have some guys that, and some of the teams in NASCAR are starting part teams who can't afford to run the whole race or whatnot. And so sometimes if we have a new product that we're scared about, we try to get it in a test car first. And then from there, we go on to getting it into one of our starting part teams to see how it goes for, 20 or 30 laps. And then we just kind of escalate it slowly until we gain enough confidence to push it across the entire board. So that's one of the processes we do here. When we come up with an innovation, we do have kind of a economies of scale type of hierarchy to make it to a point where we'd be okay putting this in Chris Rice's championship car in Phoenix.
Andrew, let me ask you a question, because your dad talks about what you're, it's kind of like your responsibility. When did you know you wanted to be a part of this? I mean, I think that's, something, because it's great to see a father and son team working together, but a lot of times, and I'm speaking very candidly, I'm not assuming anything here, but you really seem like you're engaged, and you're excited about what's going on with your company. And Mark, where I'm coming from with this, you got a passion. And sometimes, as much as you want to hand your passion over, it doesn't always work that way. But it looks like it is working, and it's got to be fun to come to work knowing that together y'all are not only building a better product today, but you're prepared to build better products into the future. And I mean, it was exciting to hear your dad talk about working with the military and the electric deal and everything. It's just really, I think it's incredible. I mean, it's really energizing to see you guys together, but more importantly, to hear how you talk and how your dad relates.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be part of it from day one. I grew up going to the racetrack. I grew up seeing you. I was a little kid walking around the garage, in 1994 through 2003 or 4. And I'll never forget the day my dad came and sat me down and said he was selling the race team. I cried my eyes out. I don't think I talked to him for like 3 days. I just didn't understand it. I was like, what do you mean we're not going to be going to the racetrack all the time? And so that was devastating. And then a few years later, when I'm in high school, he decides to get back into it, and I was very excited. So every single summer, I was just at the shop cleaning oil off the floors, like we were talking about in here. I was cleaning oil off the floors and doing deliveries down to Joe Gibbs Racing and whatnot. And then I went out to college, and I came back, and I had a couple of job offers in Atlanta, and I was thinking about taking those. All my friends were moving down that way and everything, but I've always been in love with racing. So, been enamored by my dad and watching him innovate and start to win races and everything. So I was like, all right, Dad, well, what can I do? So that's when I came back, and I was still kind of just like a delivery guy. The first year or so, I was like, Dad, I don't want to just be like a delivery guy or a salesman. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I kind of wanted to, up my game here and kind of try to expand the company. And so he gave me the idea of just building a couple transmissions and trying to lease them out. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I didn't know anything about, how that would work, or I didn't know how to build a transmission or anything like that. So he taught me how to build a transmission. I went down to Dave Blaney's shop, actually. Dave Blaney was one of our last drivers that he had over at Jasper Motorsports. And I just got a little corner back there, and I started building transmissions and going to the low-end teams like the Carl Long Racing. Like, Carl Long was my first customer. I walked into his, and he's the first guy that gave me a shot with a couple of his Starting Park Xfinity cars. And so it just slowly mushroomed from there. And I just started knocking on as many doors. I would sneak in the back of shops. People would kick me out. I would just try to get this decision maker no matter what. And we got to a point where we got a good little business here today, and we want to keep it going for a while.
Chris, you weren't one of those guys that kicked him out, were you?
Oh, yeah, I probably did. I wouldn't. They both can tell you this. I mean, I had no idea. Like if it was this one guy that I trusted in, that and now he's selling real estate. And I'm very proud of him for that. But my dad and this guy always helped my dad, and he built race cars. So I probably kicked Andrew out. And yeah, I probably did. Because Andrew can vouch for this. Nobody comes in here, do they, Andrew?
No.
Hey, Andrew's getting kicked out to this day. I mean, last week he got kicked out. I said, "Where were you at?" You know, I won't name the place. He goes, "But I snuck in the back door." And I said, "Well, you know, they probably weren't concerned about you being in racing wise, but you know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. You just don't walk into a race shop." Yeah, he said he's wearing a mask. That's supposed to count. So yeah, Andrew. He's the one that started the rental business, and proud to say it's probably at least half of our business now. I don't really look at the stats as far as comparing it to what we sell new and what we sell rental, but it's at least half the business, and it's very lucrative, and he does a great job at it. I feel that, you know, I originally started talking about what are we doing outside of NASCAR, you asked me, and so this year, one of the first times ever, we got into a Trans Am team. So we are leasing transmissions to a TA2 team out of High Point, real close to Chris and where I live up in Greensboro, Silver Hair Racing. And they set on several poles this year with it. They won a couple of races. They won COTA last week, 2 weekends ago in Texas. They were just after the Road Atlanta race last week, they're vice champions. They were runner-up champions, and this is the first year they've had their transmission in the car, and it did a great job for them, and we learned a lot off of that. But that's a series we want to go into, and probably more aggressive during the winter this year because of the road courses in NASCAR. Those guys are great. They can test anytime they want to. Their the cars are very close to these cars. They have about 550 horsepower. They're a little bit lighter than ours, but everything else is very close. And usually most of their drivers are very professional. And so I can go up to VIR with that team anytime and test with them. And so I tested this new quicker shifter on that car all year. So I feel very confident as it goes into road courses next year, because one thing that I learned being a Cup owner was how much it costs when you have a failure. I mean, it just isn't, you're just not falling out of that race. You have 200 customers there from sponsorships. You've had dinners that whole weekend. You have business to business going on up in the suites in your name with their name on the side of your car. So I'm always conscious about making sure that we never have something that goes out this door that isn't 100%. And I don't care whose car it's in. It could be in a starting park. It doesn't matter. These guys know that when it goes out this door, if it's not ready to win a race, it doesn't go out the door. I don't care whether the guy's paying $400 with it for it or $2,000. It's just because that's where I came from. I understand. I sat there and watched our car at Daytona, at Indianapolis, because Jasper's only an hour and a half from down there, and we had 500 people in the stands. We watched an engine blow up in our car. The reason why we decided to get in bed with Roger Penske to build our own engines, because we weren't doing it at the time. And the CEO of Jasper turned around to us and said, you know, how bad was that we had an engine blow up and we're the world's largest engine manufacturer? And we have 500 customers in the stand. So I really know what it is. It's more than just a failure and that car didn't finish.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, you talk about outside the NASCAR world. Are y'all doing anything as far as drag racing is concerned? Again, we've got some folks that are on the line watching the show, and they're curious about, do you have any connections there?
Well, so the only connection, not from a design or a part standpoint, but I introduced Gleason. They were coming down and making their rounds with me to our teams. And so I knew Vic Cognosi over in Lakeside Park at the time. probably 10 years ago when he had a pro stock team. And so I said, well, let's just stop by, because I knew a guy that worked there, and they told me that they had differential problems and ring and pinion problems. We stopped by there and talked to Vic, and he said, well, I'll give you a shout. He said, you know, we don't get a race out of our gear, our rear gear. And that was when Jegs was sponsoring them. And in fact, Jegs, he was driving the car even. And so Gleason built a pro stock gear, and they never built one before in their life, and went out there and they won that weekend, and they didn't have to take the rear end out that whole weekend. So Gleason does build drag race gears, and they're even building the top fuel gears now. They're building the pro stocks, the quick 8. So they're into racing quite a bit. So I don't know how they advertise that, but they are the premier gear manufacturer in drag racing with the top professional guys currently. They do a great job. You know, we don't offer the oil pump. We've actually had a couple of drag cars try our oil pump on their differential, thinking they could lower the oil level because it's horsepower. And they bought them. I've never heard much about them, but the oil pump, although you have to put a hex in the back of the pinion because it runs off the back of the pinion, it's something that could be done in another sport. I've actually designed a pump for the quick change rear end, a gear rotor pump for the front of the quick change rear end for Tiger rear ends. Gerald Williams and Nick Williams over there are good friends of mine, and I do some design work for them, and they do some machine work for me both ways. So that's another area that we're in. And going back to some of the guys that are out there, we're getting more and more calls from the drifters. So, you know, it's so easy today to make horsepower. You know, where before you had to have a multi-million-dollar program, you know, back in the day to make 750 horsepower, you had to have a shop and you had to spend millions doing it. Well, now you can go make 1,000 horsepower almost in somebody's back garage. The problem is they can't get anything to hold up behind it. So we're getting calls for our transmission for some of the drifters, and because of the horsepower they got, we've sold a couple of them. We haven't talked to any of them about hubs or things like that. So it slowly is filtering out of NASCAR to other people. We actually had a guy wanted to break a world speed record out at Bonneville Salt Flats, and he had this old IndyCar engine, and it was on nitrous, and it made like 1,400 horsepower. And he said, every time I got up to speed, I blew a transmission out of it. So and he said, can I rent one for the weekend? I said, well, you know, I've never had a world record in speed, so I'll give you a transmission and hope it stays together and lets you break the record, and it did. So it was in, I don't know, I don't keep up with those world speed records, but he still has a record with our transmission. He sent it back and said, thanks, it held up. And he sent me a picture of the trophy.
So Chris, you know, you've said all along, you know, you don't know a lot about transmission. You're not the kind of guy that's going to be able to build it, but you are conscientious enough, and I know you are aware of not running too low oil. How about the oil itself? I mean, have you worked with, you know, Mark and Andrew here to come up with the type of lubricant you want to run in your gears and transmissions to make sure that, you know, you can run lower and yet, you know, still be able to keep them safe?
Well, you know, it's like anything in NASCAR. You always get a deal, and you might have a sponsorship or a partner. And we give our oils to Andrew to make sure that's what they'll take. We have been very fortunate to have Mobil 1 as a partner of ours, and we've ran the Mobil 1 just exactly what you can buy off the shelf, and it's worked, you know, seamlessly. I'm pretty sure that them working with Stuart Haas and all those guys having Mobil 1 in their car. So yes, they do tell us what we can run, but they don't say, hey, use this oil, because they know we have product sponsors and stuff like that. So we've been fortunate to have Mobil 1 as a partner, and Lucas is also a partner of ours. So yeah, it's been a great relationship, and it's been fun. It's definitely you know, it's about the people. To go win races is about the people, and they're part of our people that we always talk about.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to kind of cut you off right here. I've been really entertained, educated, and I'm looking a lot more at watch how you guys kind of, go into 2021. It's been a pleasure having you on here. And guys, all I can say is good luck to you, Chris, and your team at Colored Racing. And the thing is, guys, Andrew and Mark, I'm great to see a father and son team working so well together to have such a bright future as we move forward. So thanks for being a part of our program today.
It's great talking to you, Jeff, again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Happy
you,
holidays.
Mark. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Chris. And
Thanks for inviting us.
for a great session, very entertaining and great stuff. If you're watching us right now and you're interested in Harrah Enterprises, go on EPARTRADE.com. They have product right there, and I think there is one on the homepage as we speak. So all you need to do, log in, click on it, click on I want more information. That will connect you directly with Harrah Enterprises, or go to the company profile and ask questions, and they will get back to you right away.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. Fill out your name, email, phone number, and create a secure password. Next, select your business type. Choose supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose racing business if you're looking to find new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose race team if you own or are a member of a professional racing team. Begin typing your company name. We most likely already have your company in our database, which you can select from the drop-down. Then, enter your job title. Choose Claim Company if you'll be editing your company profile. Other members of your company can choose Join Company if they'd like to use EPARTRADE as well. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Click Register Now, and your registration will be submitted for approval. You'll need to confirm your email once it goes through. To keep our platform industry only, you'll be approved shortly after. If we require additional proof of business, we'll reach out. Welcome to EPARTRADE.